Matt Savoie update? What's going to happen with him here in camp?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just I think he had a great summer from the playing standpoint. I love the way he was skating, competing, really impactful shift to shift through the rookie tournament. Yeah, he'll be out a little bit. It's honestly, though, Paul, best case scenario for after the imaging and everything. But he will miss some time. I'd put him more in the week-to-week type of range than day-to-day, but we're also going to be really patient and make sure that he's fully go before we let him out there. But good news overall.
Do you think he'll be at camp at all?
I asked that exact question 12 hours ago, and I think there's a chance. But I don't think this week is likely, and then we'll kind of reevaluate. I know he's begging, but we'll have to kind of take it week by week here.
When you say your voice is hoarse from talking, is some of it talking to Rasmus Dahlin, and where do you stand there?
Are you gonna ask me that question first, or do you want me to get back?
Okay,
Okay, you can get back.
I tried to be inventive.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was good. Yeah, I think there's obviously expectations probably today to have an update on where conversations with Rasmus and Owen are. And what I can tell you is this process started probably back around the combine before the draft. The key takeaways are that I've explained to their camps and to them individually how important they are to this franchise and how we feel about them, and we want them here long term, and our just that kind of conversation. They've clearly indicated back to me and to us that this is where they want to be, and they believe in this team, and they believe in the direction we're headed. So that's the start, and then you work from there. These are not easy, to get done. They're critically important for both sides, and we need to ensure that they're right. It needs to be right for both sides. So throughout the summer, I've had, I would say, characterize it as very positive conversations, productive conversations. You go through ebbs and flows of this a little bit where they pick up steam, and then, you then kind of go back and do work internally. Over the last week, I'd say with both, the talks have been more intense, more frequent, even as recent as last night. I was on phone with both their agents for a long time, late last night. So this is how it goes. So no update on where we're at. I don't think it's healthy to necessarily get into details, especially when you're talking about contract discussions. But we're going to keep working at it, and I feel we're in a good place.
How have you seen, I guess, with it's not until July either the more restricted free agents, but how have you sort of seen those two handle, this is just a business, this is part of the business?
Yeah, I think they're both very mature. They're both young players relative, in the league. I mean, obviously Rasmus has been in the league for longer and a little bit older, but they're still relatively young. But they're incredibly mature. They're asking the right questions. They both are represented by top agents, with Pat Brisson with Owen and CAA, and you have Donnie Meehan and Craig Oster in Newport Sports. They've certainly been at this a long time, and you can tell the players are well informed. So yeah, I think it's been, for me, that's actually great when the players are engaged, they're talking, they're asking questions. I also have relationships. My job as general manager is to know my team and the organization and make sure that I'm building relationships, and we're having coffee, we're just talking, so they have a job to do on that side, but also making sure that my door is always open, and if there's things on their mind we can talk about, which we have multiple times. So I think it's hey, look, it's day one of training camp. We'll keep working at it here, and the biggest thing for me is I want them to be focused on this season. I want our team to be focused, so we're going to keep working at it here and see where we can go.
Anyone else won't be on the ice because of injury?
Neuchev here, day to day, nothing long term, and I don't think I'm missing anyone else. I think it's just Neuchev.
Komarov?
Oh yeah, sorry, Komarov, but he was still from rookie camp. Yeah, he'll be out. He's progressing. He's on the ice now, rehab skates, but not full participant yet.
Kevin, if one of those get done, or both of those get done, why did you target those guys as people you wanted as key pieces moving forward?
Well, you look at the way our team is made up. We've talked a lot over the last couple of years now about the core of this team and putting it together, and then to set ourselves up for sustainable success, you need to make sure that you retain the pieces that you believe are going to help you do that. And I mean, these guys are both elite young defensemen in the league. As I said, Rasmus is a little further along in his career, but they're both, to me, critically important pieces of the puzzle moving forward. And, they're guys that can play 25-plus minutes every situation. And I just think the way the league is right now, if you can really have defensemen like that can play the minutes they play in the situations they play, the way the transition game and the speed of the game is going, I just think it's critical. So that's the focus. That's why the focus on them.
Kevin, are you comfortable with those talks stretching into the season, or would you like to get those done in the next 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think if you look at kind of, sometimes people draw a hard line in the sand. I think if you look at my history, we did the Dylan Cousins extension last year during the season. We did Tage Thompson last year toward later in the summer. I believe Samuelson was maybe right before the start of training camp last year, if I remember right. So kind of says to you, I'm open to anything, and I just want to get it right. I want to get it right for us. I want to get it right for them. But, what I do think about is our team, and, I know certain players, everybody's different. Some players can just park things and put it over here and not let it, affect in any way. Other players, they struggle with that. So I've been open and, transparent in conversations with their agents to say, the focus ultimately, starting the season, I really want to make sure is on our players individually having the best year they can and focusing on our team and eliminate as many distractions as possible. So I guess in saying that, we'll see how this goes. I'm not putting a drawing line in the sand, but I'd like to keep pushing here through training camp to move things along.
Camp with two very young NHL inexperienced goaltenders. Why are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I know it's interesting. Oops, sorry. There we go. To hear me say this, but I truly believe we're in a position of strength there. Obviously, if you kind of back up in the summer, we added depth. You guys know bringing Tokarski back, someone that we have a history with, bringing Cooley into the organization, someone that we identified with some real upside potential. And then, with 3 goaltenders that we believe are NHL goaltenders, just feel it's a position of strength. I understand when you can look on paper and say, well, there's some inexperience. They have as many games as other guys, and I get it. But ultimately, if you go and you look in the market and either you overpay in terms of dollar or term or cost acquisition if you make a transaction with another team, just because someone has more experience, not sure that they're actually putting you in a better spot. So like I told you in the summer, we explored, we looked into everything like we do every position, but ultimately when we boil it down, we believe in the people we have in that room. You've heard me say over and over again, I think a guy like Devin Levi is incredibly mature mentally, and the preparation he puts in every day, we feel that he's in a good spot, and we continue to see UPL as a young goaltender progress. And then, in terms of Eric Comrie, I think, like I touched on in the summer, there was some tough times last year with the injuries, but he's an NHL goaltender, so that's why we feel comfortable going into the season.
With Kevin in specific, no goalie that I can find has made the jump from college directly to the NHL. What gives you the confidence that he is the one capable of doing so, because no one's done it before?
Yeah, it's, I think probably most of you know me well enough that I don't put a whole lot of stock into maybe what's always traditionally been done before. I believe in taking every situation, gathering all the information you can, and looking at it logically, methodically, running every scenario, and then making the best decision. And in terms of Devin, we would not have put him in the net last year, when he came in at the end of the season, if we didn't believe that, one, it was going to help us win hockey games, and two, it was going to ultimately be best for him in his development in his career. And, I know it's a short sample, but I think what he showed is that, the maturity and, no stage is too big for him. You know, he's prepared, and he's just because he's whatever he is in age doesn't mean that he hasn't put a tremendous amount of work in, you know, on and off the ice to maybe put himself in a position that he's a little bit more mature. So that's it. But also it comes down to, you know, sometimes you just have to you trust the players you have in your organization when you know the work that they're doing, and that's what gives me comfort.
I'm sure you had a unique year last year. You acknowledge you were looking, exploring the market for him, and here he is, he's back. Just what gives you confidence that you can keep thriving here, but still a fit, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, Victor, first of all, he's a great teammate, great person. He loves it here. He wants to be here. You know, I think there was frustration out of him last year. I certainly understand that. He's a guy who scored 28 goals. He's a very talented player. But I think what gives me comfort is he's a guy that comes to the rink every day and wants to get better. You know, and that, to me, is the biggest reason why I think when players go through adversity and then they can take a step back and look at it and say, okay, you know, not woe is me, but okay, well, what was the coach thinking or not thinking, and how do I do my part to become, you know, even more of a contributor on this team? So that's the kind of conversations you have. But you know, I'm excited for the summer he had. I think he's ready to go. And I gave him my word at the end of the season. Hey, I'm going to look in the off season, and I have to do what's best for the Buffalo Sabres, but I also understand where you're at in your career. But ultimately, he wants to be here, and he's here, you know, and I think we all know what he can do on the ice, and now it's just a matter of making sure that we're putting him in a position also to have success.
How do you feel about the group that you put together, Kevin, when you consider now that the defense surplus has been addressed with the Bushkin trade and I guess finally internal competition and depth?
Yeah, I think internal competition is key. I really do. I think you want to come to training camp with players feeling they have the opportunity to impact the team. And what I mean by that is whether it's players already on the team within their role and their own step in their career, or it's players that are knocking on the door. You don't ever want guys to feel like they just don't have a chance. And I think we've proven that. You know, we're never going to put players in a position we don't think is best for our team and for them. But I think we've proven that we believe someone's ready and they've taken the step, and they're gonna help us win hockey games. And they're also going to be in a position where we think it's going to help them grow, and then we're willing to make it happen. So I'm excited about our team. I really believe in the group in that room. I believe last year was critically important for us as we matured down the stretch. I truly believe we're just scratching the surface in terms of the team that we can be. There is extremely high expectations within our walls, and that's the way it should be. You know, and that's what I talked to the team about yesterday, that you know, continuity is important. We have the majority of the group similar from a staffing perspective the same way, and so our guys are ready. They're excited. You know, they were back here a few weeks now, kind of preparing, and I could just sense a business-like approach, which I really like.
Kevin, you talked about
Sorry.
you talked about Dahlin and the situation. You've identified your core. You've signed a lot of guys long term. Dahlin is signed for this year. He could have gone to a new deal July 1st. Are you surprised, disappointed? Like, where is your thought process on this? That, you know, you have plenty of time to do it, but that it's not done.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of, a little bit in a way, Mike, answered your own question. Like, both him and Owen do have contracts this year, so that changes the deadline urgency, however the word you want to use. But I'm excited about where we're at with Rasmus. I'm excited to hear how he strongly believes that this team is ready to take a step, how he strongly believes that this is something special that's going on here, and he's committed to this. That's what I get excited about. And so now we just have, like I said, you have to work out how it makes sense for both sides, especially with these type of deals. But that, honestly, Mike, you know, those weren't always the conversations with other players, you know, when I go back a few years. And that's what's really changed. Truly people that are buying in, that believe in what we're doing here, believe in the coaching staff. When you start from there, then you can work to get the deals done, and that's what we'll keep doing.
Kevin, is there
ever a time where you look at the roster and you say, okay, I'm not looking to take any calls?
No, never. Yeah, I mean, for me, that'll never enter my mind, because I think my job is to make sure that doing every single thing that I can personally do to be aware of what's going on around the league, to find ways to make our team better. And that could be incrementally better, or that could be, an opportunity that we think is, hey, this is a huge chance to do something. So always going to look at that. But what I will say is we feel really, really strongly about the people we have in our locker room, and the group we have, and that's why we're so excited about this. So, I don't wake up today thinking, oh man, I'm ready to do something big, or we need to do something big. We believe in the group, believe in the guys. They know that. But I'm always going to be, having conversations and thinking and finding ways if there's ways to help us improve.
Are the playoffs the objective this year? I mean, and I preface this by looking back to what Kyle said after he resigned. He said, we can't be scared about expectations. There's going to be expectations next year. There's going to be lofty expectations next year, and we can't be scared of them. So I preface it that way.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm glad you used the word expectations. My feeling on that, and what I talk to the team about, is we have to embrace expectations. I look at pressure as a privilege, and these guys, with the work they've done, have put themselves in a position based on how we played last season and where we ended up with, looking at the standings all summer and seeing 1 point, as they should be getting talked about and the things that are going on. So when I think about playoffs, John, our expectation, of course, is there, but honestly, our expectation is to win the Stanley Cup, period. And so I don't want to get lost in all the other things that have to happen, but here's the reality. To win the Stanley Cup, you have to win 4 rounds of the playoffs. To win 4 rounds of the playoffs, you have to make the playoffs. To make the playoffs, you have to win a lot of hockey games. To win a lot of hockey games during the regular season, you have to be a consistent team, a resilient team, a team that is able to handle adversity, highs and lows, matures. Those are the things that add up. So at the end of the day, if you peel it all back and you boil it all down, it's about getting better every day. So what we're talking to our guys about is, of course, the expectation is that. This is over here. So let's park it. Let's embrace it. Don't be afraid to use the words. Talk about it. It's great. But really what you need to focus on is over here. Is how do we get better? How do we improve every day? Am I doing the little things in practice, the details, my habits off the ice, all the things that add up? And I probably said this before, but I truly believe you win the day, you win the little things along the way, they keep adding up. You keep stacking wins. You keep stacking wins. And at the end of the day, the team that raises the trophy is not because of that night. It's about starting day 1 of training camp, and all these incremental little wins along the way add up to this. And that's truly how I feel. It's what I believe, and I believe that we're talented, and now it's time. Look, I think our window's open right now, and our goal is to be giving ourselves a chance every single year for this is the sustainable success I talk about for a long time. So I'm excited. I'm glad you asked the question, because I think it's important to talk about.
How was Jack Quinn's rehab going, and what do you think about the group that is competing for the spot that was created, maybe temporarily at least, for a bit with him out?
Yeah, Jack's handling it exactly how I would have expected. I think I got the news on Jack when I was on the plane to Nashville for the draft, and as soon as I landed, talked to him, and he was obviously pretty down. But what I've seen out of Jack, week by week, and my conversations over the summer is a flip of, okay, now I'm getting hungry for what I can control and attack the rehab, and he's obviously in better spirits. He's doing well. He's progressing really well, and saying that, even an injury like this, when you may be cleared to first get on the ice, doesn't mean you're ready to come back and play NHL hockey. So we're going to take our time. We're going to make sure he's in a good spot. But big picture, he's doing great. And in terms of the competition, we looked at it and said, okay, are there opportunities? Should we look at bringing someone in, or you never know. We still could, but we also feel that we have a group of players that are knocking on the door right now. You look at what happened in Rochester last year with how young that team was, and the prospects we had down there and the way they played. And it's not just the obvious ones, the Kulik and Rosine and guys like that. You have Cedarquist and Kozak. I mean, there's just a number of guys that really elevated. And so I'm excited for training camp and let these guys compete. And, if we believe someone internally is ready to take a step, then they'll be here.
You got the injury to Samuelson at the prospect camp a couple of years ago. You get Savoie this year. I mean, injuries are part of the game, and you want to see guys. But with camp and preseason, does it give you pause organizationally and how you might approach that going forward with some of your guys who were NHL possibles?
Yeah, it's a really hard one for me, Mike. And, I struggle with it, but then you kind of take a step back and you're like, look, Jack Quinn was in the weight room in June, and so it's like it's a really hard thing to make sense of in your head. But you want rookie camp to evaluate against guys that are maybe in a similar position. You certainly don't want to see what happened, but I probably haven't thought enough about would we change anything or do anything. Unfortunately, it happened, and it happened with Sammy a couple years ago, but. It's a fair point, and we didn't play a couple of the guys the third game just because wanted to make sure that they were rested and ready. But it's definitely something we'll talk about.
With Roseanne and Kulik, they talked about over the weekend the gains they made over the summer. Gained weight, getting stronger, those types of things. Were you impressed with because they both had short summers? To have short summers, but they have the gains.
Yeah,
they made.
really impressed. Honestly, it shows their commitment. It shows who they are, and shows how hungry they are to make the National Hockey League. But it also showed me the lessons they learned in Rochester. That it's tough, and for guys that young to. Seth does a phenomenal job of teaching and the practice habits and helping those players learn and get better. But they went through a lengthy playoff run and I think realized how tough it is. And they put the work in the summer. Both of them had great summers. And it also, I think we made a really important decision of not having them come to development camp just to give that time because they had played so long in Rochester, just to not disrupt that summer training. So they did the work. Ultimately, it comes down to the guys you're going to commit. You're going to get up every day and you're going to put the work in, or you're not. And they did, and I think it showed on the ice, certainly during rookie camp to me.
Kevin, from an Atlantic, I'm doing an Atlantic Division preview, and just from that perspective, I was talking to Pierre Dorian, and he goes, it's the toughest division in hockey. And when you look at it, and when you see Ottawa and Detroit doing what they've done, and then how do you view this Atlantic Division, which seems to be a gauntlet?
Yeah, I think there's two ways to look at it. You can think about that and think about, whoa, these teams that have been so good, or you can think about opportunity and how, what we want to do moving forward. Like iron sharpens iron, right? Like you compete against the best, more, you're going to get better. And that's what gets me excited. And I really believe over the last couple seasons, our guys in those type of situations against top teams in the league have helped them grow. And given some maturity to players, even really young players, have had to go through a lot. So I think it's ultimately great for us. I do think it even down the stretch last year because of how tough our division is and the games that we played leading up to that, it got us ready for that kind of run at the end of the year.
Kevin, one of the reasons you guys fell in love. Sorry.
Go.
What did you learn about?
Yeah, you go. Sorry.
What did you learn about Casey last year? He got back to his normal durable self, and he moved around the lineup. And he got better as the game went on. I guess what did you learn about him last year?
Well, I always knew just from the time since I've had the job and my conversations and due diligence kind of with Casey, just first of all, what a great person he is, what a great teammate he is. I think maybe people on the outside don't understand how competitive he is and what a leader he is. And I think that started, obviously 2 years ago, he went through a lot of adversity. And last year, he came back with renewed energy. He was healthy. He's versatile. He can play anywhere, and he can play up and down your lineup and help you win hockey games. So I don't think I learned anything in terms of watching him down the stretch. I saw what I would have expected, a guy that loves his teammates, wants to win badly, wants to be part of success here. And when Tomer was banged up and everything was going on and he was put in that role, he performed. And I'm excited for him to jump back in and get going again because I think he's going to have a great year.
I guess this one falls under the expectations umbrella of questions, but one of the reasons you guys missed last year because you were a little streaky. why are you confident that this team won't be as streaky and will be a little bit more consistent?
Well, it's something we'll talk about. You know, it's a really, really good question and a fair question. This league is tough. And what you can't have happen in this league is something that happened on the Tuesday night affect Wednesday night. You know, and that's easier said than done, especially when you have a young team. You cannot let, and I'm not just saying that's a loss or a tough loss or adversity. That could be a win where you get too high and now you're not able to kind of refocus and get ready for the next one. So I think, you know, talking to Donnie, that's something we spent this summer talking about, understanding the consistency factor. The best teams are resilient, but also understand there's going to be times where maybe you don't have your best, but you don't let that bleed into the next one. Or there's times where, you know, maybe you won a couple games, but you didn't even really play your best, and don't get ahead of yourself. Let's get back to the team we are and the identity we are, and then, you know, focus on the next one. So I think that's part of it, and that's why I say, even though we've got a lot of young players, they're now more seasoned. They've been through a lot of this stuff. They understand that, and I think that's a big advantage going into the season.
Going back to Casey, how do you feel about where he fits in beyond this season?
Yeah, I think, you know, Casey's in a situation where he's taken huge steps in his career. Everybody, you know, he's a high pick. Everybody knows the talent. But just kind of last year solidifying, you know, how he fits into this team, where he fits into this team. And, you know, Donnie can move him around. You know, I love players that are versatile, that can move up and down your lineup, can play in different situations. So I'm excited for, you know, to continue to watch him progress. But no, really excited just overall about where he's at.
With Quinn's absence, I know it's kind of a clean slate for everybody once camp starts. Do you view that as a competition for a spot on that line, or is that just going to be kind of a, I mean, it's up to Donnie, obviously.
Yeah. I don't want it to. I'm not avoiding the question. That's really truly how I feel. My goal to give to Donnie and the coaches, you know, from myself and Jason Kermanos and Mark Jakubowski and Jeremiah Crow from the pro scouting side, we want to build a roster that gives Donnie options and being able to have different players play with different players. And when you look at the lineup, we want to create matchup struggles for the other team. We want to create a lineup where if they're looking at this line as our third line, they're going, whoa, how do we match up against that? Because we have these two lines that we're trying to put our top 4D or center, you know, and so I don't totally get hung up on, you know, first, second, third, but I think if you can get a group of kind of 9-ish forwards that are really, you know, able to be in a little bit interchangeable, play with anyone, and then you have a little bit of an identity line where you have that, you know, veteran presence and some grit. You know, I just think that's a little bit of the recipe. And it's the same thing on the back end. So, you know, you look at the players we added, I think EJ's already made an impact in our locker room in terms of his professionalism, his detail, how he takes care of himself off the ice. It's already impacted, you know, guys from the conversations I've had. And Cliffy coming in here is a gamer, he's a winner. You know, so it didn't bring those guys in thinking they have to play with this guy or that guy. It brought these guys in because they're good hockey players and giving Donnie the opportunity to maybe have guys be interchangeable depending on the situation in a game. Are we up a goal, down a goal, third period, second period? You know, so that's really how I look at it. But obviously Jack Quinn, I truly felt coming into this year was going to take a big step. So there's minutes, there's opportunity for someone to step up and take.
What is your goal in terms of when you want to see, when you think Jack might be back?
Yeah, I don't know if I said this around the draft, but, you know, I think this is generally a 6-month type of rehab, so that probably puts us in a spot somewhere around Christmas where, I don't know, my math might not be perfect, but in that range, but that doesn't mean he's going to be ready then. That just means, like, maybe he will, but I can promise you we're not going to, you know, try to say, hey, he's doing really well, we're going to try to move this timeline up. If the doctor says at certain time he's ready, then he'll play. And if he says we've got to be a little longer, we'll play. And I'm always a little careful with exact timelines because everybody heals a little different. And what we've worked on in the sports performance and the sports science side of things is more, you know, checklist. Have you hit a milestone? Okay, check. Go to the next milestone. Check. Go to the next milestone. So that gets us away from, okay, this injury has to be this timeline. But we want to make sure he's ready to go.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.